Okay, so this is going to be a tier list of each of the college football programs at the Power 5 level, plus Notre Dame, and I'll also include the two Pac-2 teams here in this ranking. And this is going to be a ranking of each program as I see it right now. Right now it is where I am. It's December 19th of 2024, of course. And so that means that a couple of the bowl games have already started, but the playoff games have not yet. So obviously what happens in the playoff could affect where some of these teams end up ranking. But yeah, each Power 5 team, each program at each school here that we see down below, and I got some more down there too. Anyways, so it'll be the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, Notre Dame, and then, of course, the Pac-2 of Oregon State and Washington State, out of respect for them and the way that they've been shafted by greedy conference commissioners like in the SEC and Big 10, as well as greedy TV executives that are ruining our favorite sport. But before it's completely in the shitter, let's do this ranking here. What do I mean when I say ranking each program? I'm ranking the programs based on a few different things. It's not only how they did in 2024, right? A lot of these teams, some people are obviously going to disagree with some of these rankings, say Team X is too high, Team Y is too low, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, the team's performance in 2024 will have an effect on where they're ranked, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be it's not entirely based on that. For example, Indiana had a great 2024 season, but they are not an A-tier program, right? Or, for example, Florida State had a horrendous 2024 season, but they're not an F-tier program, right? So I'm ranking these programs, I like that. I'm ranking these based on a number of different factors. A big one of those is recent history. Obviously, 2024 is important, and the years going back, I think, generally speaking, decrease in importance the further we go back, right? I'm not going to be considering anything that happened in the fucking 60s or 70s or whatever. A high peak, right? Did you win championships? Have you won championships? How high was your high peak over the last number of years? And then also consistency. How consistent are you as a program, right? Are you a consistently winning program? Are you set up to be a consistently winning program moving forward? One blip on the radar screen, one down season, if you bounce back from that, that's fine. But if you're if you're a ping-ponging team that's good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, that's good. It's going to be a ding for that. Recruiting is important. How well do teams recruit consistently, and how are you trending in recruiting? I'm not going to get into the NIL nitty-gritty. Future potential moving forward. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to start off with the ACC. We're going to start with the ACC. Obviously, you can tell by what you see around you that my team is an ACC team. At least we are for now. And so I do probably generally watch a bit more ACC football than other teams. Of course, as some of you may know, I live in Asia. And so the games are on here in the middle of the night. And so it's not always easy for me I can't, like a lot of you guys in the States can just sit down on a Saturday and watch every game, starting at noon and then going through into the night. I can't do that because that would be me getting up at midnight and being up until noon the next day. I've done it, but it's a grind. I usually try to watch as many games as I can, but I do catch. Anyways, I watch football. All right. Anyway. But the point is that I probably do watch a little bit more of the ACC when compared to the other conferences. I've got a few notes here that I've made. I'm going to look at them from time to time, but I haven't done the rankings yet, and so it's going to be a little bit off the cuff, plus using some of the notes I got. All right, so we're going to start here with Boston College. Okay, so Boston College is a program. Let's talk about consistency. They're fairly consistent in that they're fairly consistently mediocre, right? They're a program that I think generally speaking, goes to bowl games more often than they don't. Their peak was back when I was in college in the mid-2000s when they just moved from the Big East to the ACC, which was in 2005. And they had Matt Ryan, and they beat Clemson a bunch of times, and they made it to the ACC championship game a few times. Never won it, but Boston College is a program that I think was better off when they were in the Big East, and then when they first joined the ACC, they have been consistently mediocre. Now, I do think that Bill O'Brien is a great hire for them. I think that you want to get a guy with some NFL experience. Obviously, he was Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. He was successful head coach at Penn State, which is obviously a program that has more cachet than BC. In any case, look, I think BC is a program that's going to struggle a bit moving forward. Don't know what their NIL situation looks like. They don't recruit great. And yeah, I just don't know. I think that if the ACC does end up falling apart, they're one of the programs that's in the most danger of slipping down, much like what happened as we saw with Oregon State and Washington State. In any case, Boston College is a program that I'm not high on. They're definitely in C tier. And I'm actually going to put Boston College in the low C tier. They are a program, they're in a bowl game this year. Their quarterback obviously just left. I did see that they got a good transfer from Alabama, but I'm talking too much about Boston College. So Boston College for me is in the low C tier. I don't really feel great about Boston College being a consistent winner moving forward. So yeah, that's BC. Let's move to the next team in the ACC. Let's go with Cal. This here is Cal. You can't really see it, but I promise that's who it is. This is Cal here. The Bears. Yeah, Cal again. Cal is a program obviously just come from the now dead Pac-12 over to the ACC. That's tough. They're not going to be recruiting. I don't know what they're doing in terms of recruiting on the East Coast. I don't imagine they're doing a lot of it. You know, Cal's not going to be playing against other than Stanford, their rivals, and all the teams that a lot of the recruits out there in California grew up watching. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the whole Cal versus Pittsburgh or NC State isn't going to get a lot of people excited over there in the Bay Area or in California. Cal also is a school that's got pretty rigid academic standards. Now, not quite as much as another school we're going to talk about in that area, Stanford. We'll get to Stanford in a minute. But yeah, Cal's peak was when they had like Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Lynch, Deshaun Jackson in the early 2000s. They haven't really been a whole lot of anything since then. They did have a decent season this year, but again, a decent season for Cal. Like, Cal's a team that's going to go to a bowl game half the time, and it doesn't get me excited. Cal is a team that I'm going to put also in low C, and I'm going to put them behind Boston College. I think I'd rather be BC than Cal, but not by a whole lot. And so that's what I'm going to do with them. Not super jazzed on Cal's future, at least in the next few years, and I don't think they're going to be great. Next, I'm going to go with my team. We're going to get it out of the way. I'm obviously a Clemson fan, have been since a young boy, and I did go to school there. Yeah, I did graduate, actually, somehow. In any case, obviously I'm a Tiger fan, so I'm going to talk about Clemson. Clemson is a team that, obviously, we just got to be real about it, has slipped a little bit since our Godzilla waffle stomping years a few years back. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was only 5 seasons ago that LSU ended our 29-game winning streak with, in my opinion, that LSU team is the greatest college football team of all time. So it took the greatest team in college football history to end a 29-game winning streak for Clemson. So obviously things have slipped a little bit. Dabo did just take our first transfer, even if it was from Southeast Missouri State. In any case, Dabo is one of the best coaches, one of the only national championship winners in the entire sport that's currently coaching. And people love to people want to throw dirt on us every single time we lose a game to anybody. You know, Alabama can lose, and well, it's tough for Alabama. And then we lose a game, and they act like Dabo needs to quit coaching immediately, go back to selling insurance, and that we should all slit our wrists and unalive ourselves. And it's fucking annoying. In any case, we're a great program. We're not an S anymore. We were an S there for a few years. We were the best program in the country there. I would say after the 2018 and 2019 seasons, we would have been the #1 program in the country. Alabama obviously passed us again. I don't know if I'm going to put Alabama at #1 in the country right now. We'll hold on and find out. Stick around and find out. But Clemson is not the #1 program, and we're not an S tier, but we are an A tier program right now. I think we are at the second level. I think that, if we are able to make some noise in the playoff, we might be able to make a case. I think the next couple years are really important for Clemson's program in terms of how we recruit. Obviously, this year's recruiting class was a little bit disappointing. We'll see if we can get anybody else in the transfer portal. But our roster is still extremely talented, and the name still carries weight. And I think that we're set up to have a lot of success in the future. We'll see how it goes. But again, this is not all about the future. This is more, I would say I focus a little bit more on the past than the future. but the recent past, right? Because the future we're just guessing and projecting. This is not a tier list of of how many wins I think each program's going to get in the next 3 years. I'm more focused on what's happened over the last few years to get where we're at now, rather than trying to prognosticate about where teams are going to be on this list 5 years from now, because it's not going to be the same. It's going to change, right? So I'm just going to talk about where I think each program is at right now. And right now, Clemson is an A-tier program, not one of the very best, but right below them. And I think hopefully we're able to make a little bit of noise in the playoff. And but even if not, we're an A-tier program. I think that that SMU ACC championship game was really important. I think if we had lost that game, then you could consider maybe moving us down a peg. But I don't think that I think, we were in the playoff again. I think that we're clearly an A-tier program right now. All right, I'll stop talking about us, and I'll get all over the next ACC team, which I see here. I'm going from the bottom. It's roughly in alphabetical order. I think you might have noticed that. Maybe not exactly, but whatever. We'll go Duke. Yeah, Duke. Duke, really good year this year. 9 wins for Duke, and we're a blocked field goal away from beating SMU and getting to 10, and then they'd be not in the playoff, but they'd be in the top 20 easily, right? So impressive year for Duke. First year for Manny Diaz, obviously. But Duke is not a great program in college football. Duke is not a program that we can rely on to be a consistent winner. We have seen better Duke. Like Duke 20 years ago would have been a flat F. I mean, they were horrendous. But they're not anymore. In fact, they're not even that close. I think that it's pretty clear for me that Duke is going to be somewhere in, I don't know, what do I have for Duke here? What am I thinking about when I think about Duke? What the fuck? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, Duke, I think, is a program that, again, it's obviously a basketball school. It's not a program that's going to be a consistent winner in football, but they can be better than what we're used to. People my age, mid-30s when we were kids, and it's not the Duke of that time. I'm gonna put Duke in C, but I'm gonna put them in mid-C. I think that they are a better program, set up to win than Boston College and Cal. They've been better over the last couple of years than BC and Cal. They were obviously quite good this year, with 9 wins, and so I'm gonna put Duke in middle C. Most programs that are gonna get 9, I don't think Duke is a program that's gonna consistently win 9 games, but I think and they're not going to recruit well. It's Duke, right? It's not basketball. But I think they can do okay, but not great. So I'm not super high. Obviously, mid-C is not a kind of grade that you want. I do think that Duke is, let's put it like this. I do think that Duke is a slightly below average program at the Power 5 level right now in 2024. But they're better than BC and Cal, in my opinion. So I'm going to put Duke there in mid-C tier. Next ACC team is Florida State. Okay. We'll get to Florida State right away right now. Florida State. Let's put Florida State up here. Florida State is a program, obviously, they have a lot of cachet. One thing that really annoys me about Florida State is that they haven't won in a while. They won, obviously, that one title in 2013, and then back before that, you have to go back into the 90s, the last time they were winning national championships. But they still get this sort of gravitas about them. That they're some sort of blue blood program. When Clemson obviously was having winning seasons and was better than any Florida State team ever in 2018, and we won in 2016, and people act like we're just like I don't know, it's annoying. Anyway, I think Florida State, though, does deserve some cachet. They obviously are an attractive program, for good football tradition. The issue is that other than the 2023 season, they've been pretty fucking terrible over the last few years. Since Jimbo left, obviously Taggart was a horrible hire. They were terrible under him, and they've been terrible every year under Norvell, except for 2023, when they did get screwed out of the playoffs. They should have been in the playoff, but whatever. And then they obviously hit rock bottom this year and were awful. They are a team that, in my opinion, I think if they continue down the road they're going down, is going to ping pong up and down and up and down. It's going to be totally dependent on a bunch of transfer mercenaries that don't care about Florida State. But if they get lucky and get a bunch of them that are NFL guys, like a Jared Verse or a Keon Coleman, or what was the other guy? Johnny Wilson, I think, was the other receiver. Guys like that, then they're going to be successful. And if they miss on their transfers like this year, then they're going to be horrendous. And I think they're going to keep ping-ponging. In any case, they do have to get some respect, I think, for some of their history. They're still going to recruit well. They still have a pretty rabid fan base. There's no way I can put Florida State down in the C tier. I've got to put them in the B tier. I'm not going to put them in the A tier. I'm debating whether they go mid B or high B. I think I'm going to give them the respect to leave them in high B at this point. I do, of course, reserve the right to move these teams around as we start to fill up this list with more teams. When we get more points of comparison, then maybe I'll move Florida State down. Maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be sort of like a bell curve. There will be very few S and very few F, and most of the teams are going to be somewhere in the B and C range, which is why I've segmented them into high, mid, and low, because I know there's going to be a lot of B and C. It's bell curve. Most of the teams are going to be somewhere around average, and there are fewer exceptionally good programs, and there are also fewer exceptionally bad programs right now, and generally speaking. So Florida State, I'm going to put them in high B. I think if Florida State has another bad year next year, you got to drop them down. I don't know if they drop down all the way to C, but they definitely wouldn't be a high tier B. Kind of what it is going to be is I think that S is going to be the top 3 or 4 programs. In A is going to round out kind of the top 10. High B will probably be the rest of the top 20 or so. Mid B will probably get you to the top 25, top 30. Low B will get you, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 for 45 programs, and then just keep going down from there. We've got 70 in total, right? 17 ACC, 18 Big Ten, 16 each in the SEC, and the Big 12 plus 3 Notre Dame and Oregon and Washington. It's 70. So we're going to have 70 programs. So it's going to be kind of bell curve-ish is how it's going to work out. Anyway, Florida State's high B. Next ACC team I see in here is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech fight song is an S. Maybe some Clemson fans wouldn't like that because Georgia Tech is a little bit annoying. But now that I hate conference pride, I always did. But now as the ACC, we really need to have it, right? Like the ACC is kind of down bad right now in both football and basketball, and so we really need our ACC brethren to kind of step up and help us. Georgia Tech almost did that against Georgia. Anyway, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is a program that's got some tradition, has been down. Obviously, the Jeff Collins era was terrible. They don't recruit super well, although they did have a pretty good class for their standards this year. So that's good. They are in Atlanta. They're a more marketable brand in football than I think Duke and BC and Cal for sure. I'm going to rank them ahead of Duke, BC, and Cal. How far ahead? I don't know. I mean, as I was just saying that Georgia Tech is a marketable brand and they're in a big football city, but their football city doesn't give a damn about them, which is a problem. Georgia Tech also doesn't have a ton of money, and I don't think that they did bounce back this year a bit, but I don't think they're a program that's really set up to really kill it. They have for a long time been kind of a do more with less kind of program, and I don't know, man. I don't really know. What do I have notes on Georgia Tech here? Yeah. Georgia Tech to me is not a program like many in the ACC. Unfortunately, some of the ACC programs are going to get a little bit of a nerf. Going to get knocked down just a little bit because of the positioning that the ACC is in that the ACC is in as a conference right now. And a lot of the SEC teams are going to get a bump. And, I hate the SEC, but it is what it is right now. The ACC is not in a great position. Georgia Tech, I'm going to put them in mid-C, but maybe near the top of mid-C. I'm going to put them ahead of Duke. I think Georgia Tech is going to be more successful than Duke and has been more successful than Duke, although the last few years under Jeff Collins, Georgia Tech was really bad. But I do like where they're at as a coaching staff and as a roster a little bit better now. So I'm going to put them in high C. Obviously, they got more tradition than Duke does. So tradition does matter. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it does matter. And your cachet as a program, I think, is important. All right, next, ACC. I don't skip over anybody. Louisville. Louisville is a program that I think is a little bit more consistent than people realize. Obviously, they had that one horrible year in Petrino's last year where they were god-awful. Clemson beat them by 60-something that year. Louisville is pretty good. They win more than you think. They challenge. They never win championships. They won the Orange Bowl a couple of times. 15 years ago or whatever. But that doesn't matter so much anymore. But they are a good program. They get good recruits. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, having been there, I can't stand Lamar Jackson because I hate the Ravens as well. I'm still mad that he got the Heisman over Deshaun Watson, but whatever. In any case, he's a great player, and he helps Louisville's football program with their reputation as he wins MVPs in the league. And then Yeah, I mean, they're just good. They have a good coach. Jeff Brom obviously played there. He was a coach at Purdue, was successful. Hard to be successful at Purdue, but you know he obviously left the Big Ten program to come to the ACC program in Louisville. It's good. I think Louisville's coaching staff is smart. I think that they recruit okay. I think that they are a team that can be dangerous. They're inconsistent from week to week, as we saw this year. They beat us on the road, but then turned around and lost to Stanford. Anyways, they did win 8 games, and I think they could have won more. They obviously won 10 last year. I think Louisville's a program that is well positioned to win in the current ACC. And I'm going to put Louisville, let's put Louisville mid-B. I do think that Louisville is probably, in my opinion, one of the top 30 programs in the country. I don't know how many I'm going to get from S plus A plus high B plus mid B, but it's probably going to be 25 or 30. And I think Louisville does make the cut there. And I think that Louisville is going to be decently successful moving forward in the ACC. And they're a team that I think could make a playoff, make it into the playoff at some point, right? And so, yeah, I'm going to put them there. I do think that they're decent. Next one, yeah, we'll do that. Next ACC team is Miami. It's Miami. Okay, Miami. Yeah, Miami, I did sort of shit on Miami a minute ago, but I'm going to give Miami a pretty decent ranking, despite the fact that this year at 10 wins was their best year in a long time. They've been terrible under Cristobal. They were decent, pretty bad to halfway decent under Diaz. Obviously, the Mark Richt era wasn't good except for that one. Miami's just like recent. They haven't won anything. They've been in the ACC since 2004. So this is their 21st year in the ACC. They've never won it. They went to the title game once, and then Clemson beat them 38-3, where they kicked the field goal at the buzzer to even get to 3-point. The saddest field goal I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely pathetic. And Miami's been pretty much a pathetic program that's been riding on the coattails of their success from 20 plus years ago for a while now. But that said, I do think Miami is in a good position to maybe be successful in the future. They did have a good year this year. I do think Cristobal's a decent coach. He's a much better recruiter. Miami's recruiting is good. I think they've got some NIL money. They seem to have some rich donors. I'm sure they got their money through scams and sleazeball. It's Miami, I'm sure. But whatever. I do think Miami's in a position to succeed. I think that they have some good stuff going on. Despite the fact that most of their recent seasons have been bad, I do think that they're in a position to do pretty well moving forward. I like Miami. I do think Miami is a top. Well, I don't like Miami, but I like where they're at. I do think Miami is a top. I don't know. Miami definitely above Florida State, and definitely behind Clemson. Miami hasn't won nearly even close to consistently enough over the last decade to put them ahead of Clemson. Of course, definitely not. But they are ahead of Florida State. I do think Miami is in better shape to be consistently good than Florida State is. So I'm gonna put Miami in high B above Florida State. Next in the ACC, I might miss over one. If I skip over someone, I'll loop back to them later. I'm seeing NC State here. NC State is a program that I like to clown on. I call them Rinky Dink U. I think that I've been to their stadium a whole bunch of times. I've been to their basketball gym. I've been to their baseball stadium. I've been to NC. Let me see. I've been to NC State for 2 football games against Clemson, for 1 basketball game, and for 3 baseball games. And Clemson is 6-0, won every single one of those games that I went to in Raleigh. So it's fun. But in any case, I think that just NC State is a third-rate program. But I'm not going to put them in C tier. I think that, well, maybe I will. I don't know. Let me think about it. NC State is a program that I think has been pretty decent. They obviously had a really rough start to the year this year, ended up 6-6. I think that NC State, though, has been pretty decent over the last several years. Obviously, they don't have a high peak. Their high peak was they won 10 games in, 2002, and that's the only time they've ever done it, ever. Yeah, NC State is a sad clown rinky-dink program, but I do think that they are in a decent position to succeed. Obviously, it's bad that their best receiver, KJ Concepcion, is now transferring. That is a huge blow for them. You don't want... It's not a good sign when you've got starters transferring. Like we talk about Clemson not being active in the transfer portal. I think the way that Dabo does it, just real quick aside, the way that Dabo does it is such that guys don't really transfer out that much, and we've almost never lose a starter to transferring out. When you're a program that's losing star players and starters to transfer out to go to other programs, that's concerning. With that said, I am going to put NC State probably a little bit higher than maybe some other people would. I think high C would be an okay place to put NC State, but I do think that I'm going to slip them into low B. I think NC State is not that far behind, say, Louisville. I don't know. Is the gap between Louisville and NC State greater, or the gap between NC State and Georgia Tech greater? I think I like NC State's prospects moving forward a little bit more than maybe the average person does, even if I'm definitely not, obviously, an NC State fan. But I'm going to put them in low B right now, and we'll see if that changes. I'm going to do North Carolina. Now, obviously, North Carolina is a basketball program. I cannot stand North Carolina basketball. I am also a really big Clemson basketball fan, and that makes me hate North Carolina. Also, I don't know, when I was a kid, there was North Carolina fans around me growing up, and I just always really hated North Carolina. I care less about their football team, and that's also true for their own people. But they did just get Bill Belichick, and that is interesting. I have no idea how that's going to work out. UNC has been a program that's recruited pretty decently. I think that they are a program that, in comparison with NC State, UNC is a little bit less consistent, but their best teams are better, in my opinion, than NC State's best teams. I think these two programs are pretty similar, pretty much on the same line. I do think, look, the Bill Belichick thing might blow up in their face, or it might work out great. I have no idea. But as somebody whose team is sort of a semi-rival of North Carolina and who plays them next year, I can't say I'm thrilled about the hiring of Belichick. I think that anyone who's not a UNC fan or who dislikes UNC would be being a little bit dishonest if we said we're super, oh yeah, no problem. It could be a problem. In any case, I'm going to put UNC also in the low B, but just a tick behind NC State. They might be directly behind NC State once this is over. I'm going to put them in the low B. I think that it could be a problem. From what I understand, their NIL situation isn't as good as I maybe would have guessed it to be. And their basketball team is struggling this year, which I love to see. But in any case, yeah, I think that they can be pretty decent. But I'm going to put them behind Louisville and maybe just a tick behind NC State right now in the low B. Again, out of these 70 programs, I'm going to call them a pretty middle-of-the-road program. Maybe they're slightly above average when we put all these teams together, because there's a lot of programs in here that are really just kind of mired in the muck, like a BC or Cal or whatever. All right, next ACC team is going to be what? It's going to be Syracuse. Okay, I think it's Syracuse. Okay, Syracuse. Syracuse is a team, again, another good season this year, 9 wins, much like Duke. First-year coach, much like Duke, but is a program that does have a bit more history and tradition in the sport of football than Duke does. And so I'm going to put them ahead of Duke. I think that it's tough recruiting for Syracuse. Obviously, being in upstate New York, they play in the fart tent, that stupid dome that they have. But I think that, it's a program that is going to be okay. Tradition, not amazing. They'll pull an 8 or 9 win season out of their ass from time to time. But I'm going to put Syracuse. I like where Syracuse is ahead of Duke. I'm going to put them ahead of Duke. For sure, just because I think that they have more staying power than Duke does. I'm going to put them ahead of Georgia Tech as well. I think that they're a little bit more nationally relevant than Georgia. Actually, I'm going to put Syracuse in the high C. I think they're definitely below the 2 North Carolina schools there, but I do think I'd put them above Georgia Tech and Duke. So we can slide them into high C right there, and they're orange, so perfect high C, right? My millennials will get that joke. It's not even a joke. Anyway, next ACC team is SMU. Okay. This one's a hard one for me because obviously they had a really good year. They were this close to winning the ACC and beating us in that game. But it's just one season, right? And I know that they had a good year in 2023, their last year in the American Athletic, but that's the American Athletic. You don't get a whole lot of cachet for being good in the American Athletic Conference. You need to, and if you're in the AAC or the Mountain West, there's really only 2 ways you can gain a lot of cachet and a lot of on a tier list like this where I'm ranking the viability and the promise for and the stature. I guess that's what this list is: the stature and the status of these programs. There's only two ways you can do that if you're in a non-power conference, and that's either A, move to a power conference, which obviously SMU has done, or B, go beat big-time power conference teams in, like I would say now, the college football 12-team playoff, which Boise State has a chance to do. Boise State is not on this list because I haven't included any non-Power 5 teams. We can talk about it at the end of the video where I might put them. SMU. But yes, SMU has moved up from where I would have put them years ago. But I'm not quite ready to put them. I need to see more from SMU. If SMU does it again next year, if they win another 10 or 11 games next year, if they're back in the ACC championship, back in the college football playoff, obviously, if SMU wins games in the college football playoff, that has a chance to shoot them up. I'm going to put SMU at the top of high C, and I'll with the caveat that if they either A, win one or more games in the playoff this year, or B, have another good, solid, 9-10 win season next year, that I'll definitely move them up into the B tier, maybe even up a bit into the B tier. But I need to see it again. 1 year is not going to get me to put SMU up in the higher tiers. I think they're still a mid-tier team, but they got money, great year this year, and they've got a lot of opportunity for future upward movement. All right, next is Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pitt is a program I don't have a ton of respect for. Obviously, they won. They were good in the 70s. When they had Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino, or whatever. But and Larry Fitz. But just Pitt is not a program that I have a ton of respect for. They play in an NFL stadium, but it's not. It's not like. Does the city of Pittsburgh care about Pitt? I don't think they do. And they're not a team. They are also a team. I remember the first big transfer. It was when Jordan Addison transferred away from Pitt. The first big NIL transfer was Pitt transfer. I'm sorry, Jordan Addison transferring from Pitt to USC. And I'm like, he had won the Biletnikoff as the receiver of the year. And it's like, dude, your best receiver is like, yeah, screw you. I'm going to go to another school across the country. It's like, if you're a big-time program, that should never happen to you. So Pitt, and spoiler alert, Pitt is not a big-time program in my eyes. They are inconsistent. They haven't been good. They were, they started 7-0 this year and then ended up 7-5. That's Pitt. I don't think they recruit great. I think that they're not in an amazing position to succeed. And while they do have a little bit of history, it's real dusty. And I just don't think people care that much about Pitt. Okay, so where am I going to put them? I'm going to put them. I do think that they are a better program and better position than BC and Cal. BC and Cal, to me, are kind of poverty programs. I would put Pitt ahead of Duke. I don't know if I'm putting Pitt ahead of Georgia Tech. I'm going to put Pitt here. Again, Pitt and Georgia Tech play in big football cities that don't care about them. But I think Atlanta is a better city for football and for recruiting than Pittsburgh is, generally speaking. So Pittsburgh may be a better city for coaches, but Atlanta definitely a better city for players. So I'm going to put Pitt there. Next. Who we got in the Stanford? Yeah, Stanford's in the ACC now. Stanford is a tough one. Stanford right now is academic standards extremely stringent. Really tough right now. They've had problems with the early signing period in terms of getting guys able to enroll with their academic calendar. I don't know the exact specifics of that, but I know it's a thing. Stanford is not a school that's going to make exceptions for athletes, generally speaking. In terms of that kind of stuff. So it also hurts them in terms of getting incoming transfers. They were obviously really good when they had, the Andrew Luck and Christian McCaffrey era with them. But, man, it's been rough since then. It got David Shaw, who was a great coach, let go. And I think that their new guy, Troy Taylor's a good coach. But, man, it's really one of the toughest places to win in the Power 5. They're not good. They're not. I don't think they're an F. F for me is a program that's just complete tire fire, completely hopeless, is going 0-12, 1-11, and has absolutely no prospects for being good in the near future at all. I don't even know that we have an F-tier program at the power conference level right now in college football. We'll see. I'm not going to put Stanford in the F tier, but I am going to put them in the D tier. I think it's going to be really hard for Stanford to win with any consistency, even in the ACC moving forward. And being in the ACC is not good for them. It's going to be rough for Stanford, I think, before it gets any better, if it does. So I'm going to put them down in D. Next program is in the ACC is is that no, of course not. We got Virginia Tech, Virginia, Wake Forest. Okay, so we're going to start with, I guess we'll start with Virginia Tech. This one was really hard for me when I was making notes and thinking about where to rank the Hokies because their history matters, but the high peak was, I guess, 1999, losing in the national title game when they had Michael Vick. But they were really consistently good during their Big East years. And when they joined the ACC, they won it the first year they were in it. They won it a few times after that. Like, they were really good. But the last, I don't know. I mean, Fuente's first year was good in at 16. But since then, man, I don't know. Like, where should I put Virginia Tech on this list? It's really kind of difficult to see where they're going. Like, were they good this year? Not really. A lot of people thought they were going to be a surprise team in the ACC, but it wasn't them. It was SMU that sort of took that role, and then obviously maybe a little bit of Duke and Syracuse. Virginia Tech was not as good as any of those teams this year, but I still think they have a little bit of cachet. I think that they're a better program than Syracuse. I think I'm going to put Virginia Tech, I'm going to sneak them into low B. Maybe that's a little bit too high. I mean, like, again, we'll see how they compare to some of the other programs we're going to rank here in a bit. I have an inkling because I have looked at it a little bit and made some plans about how I'm going to do this. And Virginia Tech was one I really sort of struggled with when I was thinking about it. So I don't know. I'm going to slide him into low B tier. They're like really a program that is, in my opinion, at a crossroads. How are they going to use their money? I think the next few years are going to be really important for Virginia Tech in terms of determining whether they're a program that's going to trend upward or trend downward in this new Wild West era of college football. Virginia is a program that is not a good program. I love their coach, obviously Tony Elliott. Played at Clemson. When he was at Clemson, I was in high school and I got to meet him. I played Pop-A-Shot with him and beat him at the ESPN Zone in Atlanta before the Peach Bowl. We beat Tennessee in that game. In any case, I really liked Tony Elliott. He was cool to me. I was a teenager. And yeah, he's a great guy. And he was a great coach, obviously, at Clemson. Won national titles with us as the offensive coordinator. He's fantastic. But we're not talking about him, just him anyway. We're talking about Virginia's program, which is a bad one. People in Charlottesville do not care about their football program. I've been there for games. They don't give a shit. It's just not a good football program. You could be in Charlottesville and have no idea that there was a UVA football game happening. I wish Tony would have taken a different job. This program sucks. It is not a program that has enthusiasm. I don't think it's a program that their alumni are going to line up behind to donate money. They care way more about basketball. I think that they are one of the bottom Power 5 programs in an extremely difficult place to win, and I think I'm going to put them. I don't know if I should put them at D. They're in a better place than Stanford for sure. I'm going to drop them at the end of low C. I don't think they're awful. It's just hard to win there, and I wish them the best. I think Tony Elliott's a good coach, and we've seen him win a little bit in the past, but man, just a tough one there for Virginia. I don't think that they are great. Maybe I'll drop them into D, but I'm going to put them right at the end of low C for now. And then Wake Forest is also another program that's real difficult. Wake Forest is a program that my second favorite team in the ACC. I really respect what they do. They do a lot of more with less sort of stuff at Wake. Obviously, Dave Clawson has just stepped down, which is a huge blow for them. I'm going to put them ahead of Virginia, but behind Cal. Really tough to win there. Not huge enthusiasm for their football program, generally speaking. But they have been more successful recently than Virginia, for sure. They made the ACC title game a couple years ago, and I've definitely seen Wake Forest's peak higher than Virginia, a lot higher. So, and they've been more consistent. Now, I don't know what they're going to do. They don't have a coach right now. I don't know how it's going to go for them. Rough couple years for them. I don't know that their position. I'm putting them down in low C for the Deeks. Is that all the ACC teams? 4, 7, 9. Yeah, that's all the ACC teams. Okay, cool. ACC's done. You'll notice there's only no S-tier programs in the ACC, only one A-tier in Clemson, and yeah, and hey, only one A-tier program. What, you got an opinion about this? Are you an ACC fan or what? No? Okay. Well, then go away. I'm busy. Thank you. So yeah, it's not a whole lot of chaff and not a ton of wheat in the ACC right now. It's really disappointing, and I might have ranked some of those low B teams even too high. NC State, UNC, Virginia Tech, right there. That might even be too high. I don't know. We'll see. Moving on. We're going to move on to the Big Ten next.